Hi guys, welcome back. This is John at Daddy Directive. Today I'm going to talk about the importance of having a dad when it comes to raising a son. I might be a little bit biased here, but I do think dads are incredibly important when it comes to raising whether it's a daughter or a son. But today I want to talk specifically about sons. The roles of the mom and dad is not as defined as set as before, but we can't ignore the biological roles that we do take and how the boys would identify as they grow up as what we would call a male gender. I did a little bit of research trying to see the influence and the effects of having a dad when it comes to raising a child, especially when it comes to the boys. And there is overwhelming evidence that the boys who grew up with a dad are less likely to have problems with the weight, getting trouble in school, substance abuse, or generally being involved with more risky behaviors as they grow up and once they reach adulthood as well. What is it that having a dad that makes a difference to the boys, that it will prevent those kind of, that will reduce the likelihood of those kind of negative effects or negative behavior traits that the boys may end up taking? According to the renowned psychologist and a best-selling book, Raising Boys, by the Australian author Steve Biddulph, who also happens to be recipient of the Australian Father of the Year in year 2000. So this guy knows a thing or two about being a good father. In his book, he states that the boyhood can be divided into mainly 3 different stages, and the role of the parents are different for each of those stages. The first stage is 0 to 6 years old, and he calls it the mom stage. This is a stage in which the children understandably needs the mother more. It's important to have a strong bond and attachment with the parent where they can just grow up feeling safe and loved. But once they reach the second stage, which is between 6 years old and 14 years old, this is the stage in which the boys start to identify themselves as male intellectually and start to look towards their fathers or dads and try to understand their role as a male gender. In his book, he indicates that around this time, the boys will actually turn to the dads as their primary parent. And that's not to say that, the mom is not any important by this stage. It just means that the boys are starting to find ways to mimic and to understand more about themselves. Since they are willingly looking for guidance from you, this is the time where you can actually build on that trust and solidify the bond with your son. And that would lay the foundations for the relationship that you'll have with them later on into the adulthood as well. And then the last stage is 14 to 18 years old. Typically by this stage, they start to grow a little bit out of the reach of the parents, especially with the boys. At this time, they are hitting their puberty and their testosterone level is actually going through the roof. In fact, the testosterone level is around 800% of what it used to be. So they are surging with hormones and they're growing incredibly fast. And they feel being so attached to or dependent on their parents are not perceived as cool among their friends, so they'll start to look for other type of mentors around that age group. And hopefully by this stage that you have built a strong enough relationship with your son as a father that you can start to guide him towards a new mentor where he can find additional guidance. The dads have to remember that all through these 3 stages, you are actually setting a prime role model for your son in a such way that they will try to mimic and they will try to comprehend the world around them by your actions and your reactions to how you treat other people, other gender, and other members of the same sex as well. So what should you do as a dad to encourage a good development, both mentally and physically, with your son? The first one, although it sounds so simple and so obvious, is to spend as much time as possible with your son. Actually spending that physical time together with your son is so important. And the boys who don't actually get as much attention from their dads are more likely to misbehave and act up. And one of the simplest solutions is just to spend more time with them. Many times the parents fall into the trap of thinking, oh, you know what? It's okay if I don't spend that much time with them. I will just have more quality time when there is enough time and I actually have more energy. But unfortunately, for many of us, the quality time is not something they can just turn on at the flip of a switch. You would need to actually spend the time and build up that relationship with your son. because it's not like one day you just go out and play some football with your son and then you're just gonna have the best time of your life. It just doesn't work like that. In fact, they will feel like, this is strange, he never did this, and why is he trying so hard? When their parents suddenly change their attitude or behavior towards them by trying to make connection, once they have realized, oh my God, we are losing touch with our children and need to reconnect. So it's important that you actually make it your part of your everyday and then actually spend the time with your children so you're connecting on an everyday basis. It doesn't mean that you have to have an awesome activity every time you spend time together. It could be something as simple as, just playing some card games, playing with toys, throwing catch on the backyard. Even if it's for 20 or 30 minutes, because that's the only time you can afford. The 20 minutes and 30 minutes will add up. When you start to ignore those mini sessions of when you can bond with your son, those are the times that you're missing the opportunity to lay a good foundation for the relationship that you can have with your child. If you ignore what's really important, which is the relationship that you have with your other family members, whether that is with your wife, with your daughter, and with your sons, those are the times you're not going to be able to get back. You actually have to show that you actually care. The saying that out of sight, out of mind is quite applicable here. The less you see and less you actually actively spend time and speak and have a conversation with the other person, any kind of human being, whether that's a friend or family, you will naturally grow a distance in the relationship between the two. So spending that time with your son is absolutely paramount, because soon enough, they're not going to be the ones who are looking for you. And by the time you feel that you have time for them, they may no longer need you. Second thing is when you're roughhousing with your kid, that is not just play. You're actually teaching them an important lesson when it comes to their spatial awareness and actually learning to understand their physical development. Eventually, it's inevitable that your child, your son typically, will end up hurting an adult when you are playing around. And it's important as a dad to show them and guide them that what is okay and what is not okay. They have to be able to understand their actions and how much strength should be used when it comes to play and such. How else would they be able to understand that? The fact that you're an adult who can show guidance in terms of leading them, how much strength is acceptable and what would be considered hurting and what is considered playful. By helping your son go through this process, they'll have a better understanding of their own body, their own strength, and what they can do and what they cannot do. And just as important as teaching them the physical development and the spatial awareness is teaching them to be aware of their softer side, namely their emotional side. And many of the boys are raised and taught that they should be a man and that they should not cry and they should just be able to kind of push through because they are men. And showing emotions was often treated as showing weaknesses. But we know that is not true anymore. Boys who grew up with a dad who is very true to their emotions, who show a lot of affection to the boy and can admit that they are sad, would actually raise a more mentally healthy son. And lastly, but importantly, you will also be the first role model to teach them how to respect other women. You'll be teaching them how to respect other women by showing how you treat your wife, how you treat your daughter, and how you treat other people outside as well. They'll see that and they'll absorb all of that you do in terms of the behavior, the way you treat them, the attitude that you take towards them. So that is to say that if you're a misogynistic pig, so to speak, your son has a very high likely chance of becoming one as well. Because just as you are the first role model for your son as a male counterpart, your wife is also the first role model they see as their opposite gender. And seeing how their moms are treated by their dads sets the fundamental foundation in which they understand the relationship between the two genders as well. We talked about a few of the tips that you can implement as a dad when it comes to raising a son. And I hope that these tips have been helpful to you guys. So if you found any value in this video, please hit that like button and subscribe for more videos in the future. As always, thank you for watching, and guys, happy parenting.